Well, hello there and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam Hind, and I want to start off by talking to you about what this podcast is for. We specialize in the direct selling industry. My husband, Greg, and I are extraordinarily passionate about what this industry does for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of individuals all across the globe every single day. The reason we wanted to start this podcast was because we wanted to not only spread the message and the stories of what incredible companies and individuals in this industry have done over the years, the stories that date back decades from companies that have started from literally nothing to being unbelievable companies today that are changing hundreds of thousands of lives every single moment of every single day, to leaders who have gone through adversity and challenge and come out with unbelievable stories to share with you. And also those that are the underdogs, people that thought maybe they didn't have what it took, and they've shown everybody, including themselves, just how wrong they were. But the other thing that we're here to do is help you to grow your direct selling business. Whether you're thinking of entering into the industry and you want to know, is this industry safe? Is having a business in this space going to really be a place for me? Or maybe you're somebody who's been in the industry for a long time and you've been wondering, how do I grow my business and take it to the next level? Maybe you feel stuck, challenged, or you're just looking for some inspiration. Or perhaps you're a really clever individual who's looking to gain some wisdom and advice from those that have gone before you. Well, if any of those sound like you, then you are in the right place. This podcast was built and created for you to help you be the best that you can, utilizing this incredible industry for all that it is. And today I'm going to be introducing you to an amazing individual, Greg Provenzano, who is the president and co-founder of ACN Incorporated. Greg was one of 4 founders who originally started ACN 30 years ago. Just this year, they celebrated their 30th anniversary. And when I was chatting with Greg about being a guest on this podcast, one of the things that he said to me was, if anybody can start from nothing, if we could start from nothing, anybody else can do that too and become amazingly successful just like our company has. Greg shares in this episode, in this interview that I conducted with him, all about that starting point, what it looked like for ACN and how they came to start this amazing company and where they are today. He also shares a lot of incredible wisdom and some laughs along the way of what that looked like for them. Greg has been a leader. He has been an inspiration to thousands and thousands of people, which has led to their company today not only being one of the most successful direct selling companies, but they're now in over 27 countries and over 4 continents around the globe, all starting from a living room, from somebody's apartment. So I know that you're going to really appreciate this story, but most importantly, I want you to listen to the little bits on the in-between. Greg shares a lot of wisdom in this episode that I know can help absolutely anybody, whether you are starting out, whether you haven't even made a decision to start out yet, and you just want to know what that might look like for you, or whether you've been in this industry for a really long time and you want advice, support, help, and maybe inspiration to take your business to the next level. This is going to be a really powerful episode for you. Don't forget, of course, to share this episode with anybody else that you think might be inspired by this story. And thank you again for tuning in. And so with no further ado, I'm going to encourage you, grab out your pen and paper because Greg drops a load of golden nuggets along the way. Get your cup of tea or coffee and enjoy the episode. Welcome back to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I am so excited to be joined today by Greg Provenzano. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, Greg, to join us for a chat today about ACN, the history of ACN, and your story.
Sam, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, actually, and I've been looking forward to doing this ever since you asked. So I'm looking forward to having a great conversation with you.
Well, we had the absolute honor and pleasure of being able to meet you and some of the other founders and, of course, much of the ACN family in person in Fort Worth a couple of months ago. And first of all, congratulations on the anniversary of ACN, 30 years. What an amazing accomplishment. It's, well done.
I can't even believe that came out of your mouth. But it's the truth. We have been doing this for 30 years, and it has been an amazing ride. And we are very grateful for what ACN has become. But, we have a lot of things in store for us in the future. And we believe that, the first 30 years was just laying the groundwork for where we want to go. But we're grateful for what happened, for sure. And we are excited about what's about to happen as well.
Well, I'm really excited to hear a bit more about it. And I had the honor and privilege of hearing just a little bit of your story at your Elevate convention in Fort Worth. But so we're going to talk a little bit about some of that today. And there have been many laughs along the way, as well as challenges, as would be expected with starting a company. But you guys are doing some unbelievable things that, of course, you should be extraordinarily proud of. So I'm really excited to hear about them today. But before we get into all of that, I want to hear a little bit about you. You've got 5 beautiful grandkids under 5 now. So you're in a whole new season of life, Greg.
I am in an amazing season of life. This has been the most wonderful time for us, for my wife and I. Sherry and I have been married for almost 42 years
Congratulations.
now. We met in high school, and she's put up with me for so long, building a business, and at the same time, growing a successful family. She's predominantly the reason for that, as I traveled for so many years. But Sherry's a great lady, and you're right. And we now have 5 grandkids from our 3 children. They all live locally, so we're able to see them quite often. In fact, my second youngest grandson is here right now as we're doing this broadcast. So it's an exciting time for us, and we're grateful for what's happened to our family.
Yeah, it's really amazing what this industry enables us to be able to do. And congratulations on 42 years of marriage. I think I need to take some advice from you for sure. That's an amazing accomplishment just in itself. But, also really great that you've got the kids so local. And I understand that you're a bit of an avid cook, chef, and there's a cannoli situation that you like to get a little bit involved in with your family. Yes, I do have some.
How in the world did you find out about the cannolis?
Look, I don't know, but I'm sure our listeners want to hear all about this because I sure do.
Wow. This is a tradition that my mom and dad started, and we used to help them. And now we've passed this tradition during Christmas, where we make the actual cannolis from scratch. We make the shells. Wow. So we make the dough. We fry the dough around the dowels to make the little cannoli shells. And then we also make the cream from scratch as well. And in our neighborhood, we've been in this neighborhood now for 25 years. We moved from Detroit, where I grew up from. And we now live in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And our neighbors have come to expect these at Christmas. And so this past year, we made over 600 shells.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. And you're wondering how I heard about it.
And they all come over to pick up their kits. We give them a kit.
Yeah.
And we also give them a Christmas drink. I actually think they're coming over for the drink more so than the cannolis. It's just an excuse for all of us to get together.
Yeah, I love it.
But it's just a lot of fun.
Wow, that's really special. How long does it take you to make 600 cannolis?
About 5 hours.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. You've got a production line going in the family, I imagine.
Huge. Yeah, all my kids know exactly what to do. Now the grandkids are rolling the dough and cutting the circles. It's quite exciting, actually.
Yeah. And it won't be long. You'll have the great grandkids in there too.
They dig in as soon as we can get them in there.
Yeah, I'll bet they do. Well, look, Greg, I'm really keen to hear the story from the beginning. Again, we see ACN now 30 years on. How did you and your partners come to start ACN? What did that even look like, and how did that decision formulate? What did that look like? What did those first days look like for you guys?
Yeah, it was quite an interesting time, a time of huge risk, but it was something that was brought upon out of necessity, as opposed to something that we thought about doing for a while. In fact, to give you an example of that, Sam, myself and the other co-founders did not know each other for 3 months before we started ACN.
Okay.
Yeah. We met through a mutual friend, through Debbie Davis, actually, who's one of our senior vice presidents.
Yes, I met
she
Debbie.
introduced all of us together. Yeah, Debbie's a great lady. And, we got together at another company, but that other company was virtually going out of business. They were going bankrupt. And so we had to do something. And then we searched high and low to find another company that we could all collectively put our efforts together. Mm-hmm. But after all that due diligence that we did in 1992, there was not one other company that we felt good enough to work with and also bring all of our people to. And so that's when we got the real wild idea of starting our own company. And that was in the fall of 1992. And we came together and we really, I had 9.5 years of notes and VHS tapes and audio cassettes, back then and they brought all their stuff from different companies that they represented. And we put everything out on the table and we made a list of things, and we put it on a piece of paper. And this was our business plan, actually. We put it on a legal pad of paper. We listed everything on one side that we felt that would not work in network marketing based on our experiences. And on the other side, we listed everything that we knew that would work. Mm-hmm. And our business plan was that simple. We ripped that page in half. We threw away everything that we knew that did not work or would not work in a company based upon what we did in the past. And we implemented just about everything on the other side of the page that we knew that would work. And that's one of the reasons why we've been around for 30 years. It was just that simple.
Wow. I'm really fascinated about how you come together with numerous partners. It wasn't just two people. There are, 4 of you guys? Mm-hmm. And you have been together for 30 years. It's sort of didn't start with 4 and it's ended with 3, or you've separated into 2 or anything like that. You guys have stuck together for all this time. And you've just told me that you didn't know each other for 3 months before starting this company.
That's correct.
What's the secret to a successful partnership like that?
Well, it's a miracle in and of itself. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, it's a miracle for 2 people to stay together for 30 years.
Absolutely. Most, the vast majority of marriages don't last that long.
Yeah. But, from the outside looking in, right, it looks like everything is perfect, right? Just like, in a marriage, right? It looks like the couple are so in love, but you know what I mean? Behind closed doors, it may be a totally different story. Well, with us, it's a very unique setup, actually, because we really do enjoy being around each other. We're friends. Now, it doesn't mean that every day we agree on everything. Doesn't mean that at all. Yes, we fight behind closed doors, and we've had some pretty tough board meetings over the last 30 years. I'm sure you can imagine. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we always had the big picture in mind, and one of the greatest assets that we have with our company anyway is not one of us, Robert Stevanovsky, Mike Kupas, Tony Kupas, and myself, not one of us has an unhealthy ego. And that's pretty rare. Like we never really cared about titles, who had the biggest office. None of that stuff mattered to us. The only thing that mattered actually was wanting something to work initially for our families, because we needed something to work. And then wanting something to work for the flood of people that were going to be a part of ACN. And we just wanted to do it right. We wanted to establish a solid foundation. We wanted to attract the right kind of people. And I think that, we had loftier goals, even in the beginning, than just serving our own interests. And I think that has served the company well.
Yeah. And just really quickly, for our listeners who don't know what ACN is, can you give a broad description of your company, how it works, what your services are, just so that our listeners are, aware of the beautiful model that is ACN?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a direct selling company, and we market essential services that people need, want, and use every single day. So we don't have any product. We don't have any deliverables. This is all a service-related business. So we have telephone service, internet service. We have home security. We have gas, electricity. We have a health sharing opportunity. We have a travel opportunity. And so these are things where you don't have to change anyone's buying habits. People are already spending the money on all of these areas already. We just show them how to redirect that spending, provide better value for them, generate revenue for ACN, which in turn generates a residual income for all of the independent business owners that we have. And so it's a win for everybody. The consumer wins, ACN wins, the IBO wins. And that's why our story is not only simple, but it's really received very well from the masses because it just makes sense.
Yeah, amazing. And just coming back to those first days when you had that legal pad and that piece of paper where you wrote out, what would work, what wouldn't work, and where you wanted to go. If you were able to see in 30 years into the future and look at where you are now, would you have been surprised? Would it have been exactly what you were expecting? What would your reaction have been to have been able to see 30 years on what ACN looks like in those early days?
Yeah. Where we're at today, Sam, has blown us away, for many, many years, actually. I mean, like I said, we started from very primitive beginnings, and the business plan was an example. And I can give you so many other stories about, how we began. But, we just wanted something to work for our families initially. And then in turn, we knew that if we established the right criteria, the culture, always giving back to people that help build ACN, that we would attract the right kind of people to help build the business, but in turn, change people's lives because they can build a company within a company based upon our structure. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happened. And so, to think that we would have been this big back 30 years ago, it wasn't even in our thought process. We knew that we were going to be great. We knew that we had something very special and very spectacular. But to be this big when we first began, it wasn't even our thought process.
Yeah. And it's really amazing. Again, we've had the opportunity to see a portion of your field in person and that passion they have. But it's you've developed quite an amazing culture between all of the partners that has really filtered down, and you really sense that when you're at an event with all of you or when you're speaking to any of your field, and it's quite a beautiful thing. If you were to I guess summarize what it is about ACN, why is it that you believe that 30 years on, you guys are still not just here, but you are going strong and you're growing?
There's actually a number of reasons, but I think that the main overarching reason why we're here, and so many other companies started and just fell off, is that we're a very principle-based company. Mm-hmm. And very early on, Sam, we just said that we're not going to compromise who we are and what we stand for. We're just not going to do it. It's not worth it to us. We just think at a higher level. We think long term. It wasn't just about getting in and getting out and making a quick hit. It never was about that. And when you have long term thinking, as we did even 30 years ago, you tend to make better decisions. You don't make decisions that are best for you today. You always got to think, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, how will this impact all of the people that are a part of ACN? Because it's not just the four guys anymore, right? It's not just the four guys in our families, right? It's just a small piece. But every leader and their people, they depend on ACN. They want to build a company within a company. They want to acquire customers and developers and create a residual income for their families. And that's what we've created. We've created that culture and that environment. But to answer your question, I just think that we're a very sound company because we've never compromised who we are. And I can give you a real quick example of that. We had a guy on the West Coast in the very early days of ACN. I'll never forget this. And he was very, very good at what he did. And we attracted him. We started in Michigan. He was all the way on the West Coast. I don't want to get too specific because I don't want to, name him out. But he started doing things that were not in anyone's best interest but himself. Mm-hmm. And it was detrimental to the way that we wanted our company to be operated. And it was going to counterculturally with who we were. Yeah. And so I called him up and I said, listen, we're hearing some things in the marketplace today. We need you to stop. This is the way we want you to market. This is the way we want you to build. We want you to attract the right kind of people the right way. And he said, okay. Then we heard it again after about 60 days. Well, this time I didn't just have a conversation with him. I told him to fly all the way to Detroit, suburb of Detroit, where our office was, come in, and I wanted to talk to him. Now, listen, he was at that point 1/3 of ACN's business volume. Wow. Him and his entire organization. He was a big time producer. Mm-hmm. So I said, listen, you may think that we're going to turn a blind eye because of all the business that you're doing, but I'm telling you who you're in business with. It doesn't matter how much you do. If you don't do it the right way, you're going to have to go do it somewhere else. And so he knew we were serious. So he goes back over to the West Coast, stays in line for a couple months, and sure enough, he just can't help himself. And we terminated him. Mm-hmm. And we terminated a guy that was 1/3 of our business volume then. And that was not an easy thing to do, especially when we needed the business. You can imagine being a startup company, you need every dollar coming in the door that you can get. But again, we made those tough decisions early on. And let me tell you what that did. It not only helped our company's culture, but it sent a shockwave of confidence to all the other leaders that were in ACN at the time, that they're with a company that follows through with what they said that they were going to do. And I think that when you establish that type of mindset within your organization, it is solid. It's solid at the top. It's solid from the co-founders on down, and our leaders know it. They can feel it. They can trust us. Not that we don't make any mistakes, because we do. We make mistakes every single day. We're just a company that makes it right because we really do want the best for people.
Yeah. That's a really powerful story. And, we've all seen many instances, I think, where companies in this industry perhaps haven't, had the confidence or guts, I suppose, to make decisions like that. So, it's amazing that you have done that. And I think that's a really powerful way for establishing culture. One of the things I was going to ask you sort of answered that in a little way, but I'm sure that you've got some other stories around this. A lot of people see the success story. They see what's going great. But what they don't understand is whenever any business starts, and it starts from small things, I'm sure you guys were in a lounge room somewhere. What did that even look like? What was your HQ like in those early days, Greg?
Oh my goodness. We started off on the 8th floor of a building, and then we expanded down the hallway on the 8th floor, and then it went down to the 7th or 6th floor, I forget which. And we were just piecemealing everything. Wow. We had a total of about 1,500 square feet. And our distribution system, our distribution center, if you will, where we had kits in the beginning where when people joined our company, we sent them out some materials. It was videotapes and audio tapes and leaflets and flyers and all the things that we used to do. We used to send that out. That was in a closet. Wow. And that was in the same room where some of our data entry people were. Our executive office was an office about half the size of I'm in my home office right now. It was about half the size of my home office here. And when I had an appointment, I would take out my nameplate out of the drawer. Nameplates were big back then, 30 years ago. I took my nameplate out, put it on the desk, and that was my office for the day. When I had somebody going to tell them all about ACN, when I was done, I put my nameplate in the desk. Mike, when he had an appointment, he brought his out, and it was just that type of scenario. But we just made it happen, and people understood it. And it was the story about what we were going to be, not who we were at the time.
Yeah.
I think that sold really well, and especially when you actually get the results of the picture that you're trying to paint in the beginning, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there ever a time where you knew without a doubt that the company was going to be the success that we see today?
Yeah, I'm not so sure if there was a specific time, but I can tell you something that solidified the company. Maybe that's what you're asking. We originally were in the long distance business. That was the only business that we had, and it only represented about $15 a month per household. That's all most people were spending on their long distance bill, and we were marketing for a small regional carrier out of Ohio. They wanted, I'll never forget, we went there and said, we want to be your marketing arm to acquire customers. And they had other marketers that were acquiring customers for them at the time, that they were paying upfront money for the customers. And we told them that we don't want any upfront money, none, which kind of blew them away. Because who doesn't want customers coming in the door without paying for them first, right? So it sold really well to them. But here's what we told them. We said, listen, the only thing that we want in exchange for that is we want a residual income for as long as those customers remain a customer that we bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And that's what they did. And so the second thing that we asked them is that if they ever sold their company, that we would get a piece of that sale for the volume of business that we brought to their table. So no harm, no foul. If we didn't produce, they weren't out a dime. And they were a publicly traded company. And so who's going to say no to that? It was a no-risk scenario. And so they signed the agreement, and we became their strongest marketer of their long-distance phone service. In fact, and within the first 5 years, we did over $300 million of business for that company. Yeah. And as things would have it, there was a lot of consolidation going on in the telecommunications business back then. They got bought, and they got bought, I think the figure was $4.4 billion. And they sent us a check for about 80 million of it.
Wow.
And you can imagine now, think about this, a few guys from Detroit, Michigan, 5 years into the deal, you get an $80 million check. And so,
yeah, there might have been a few high fives going on that day.
You know what I mean? That was a good day.
Yeah.
But then you have to make some decisions, right? Do you follow through with what you said you were going to do, or was that a good run? Well, you obviously know what we did.
Yeah.
We took the majority of the money, and I mean the majority of it, and we rolled it back into ACN, and that really helped us to solidify the company. We expanded on a really huge scale at that time. We went international, and we just attracted so many great people to help bring us to where we're at today.
Yeah, amazing. And you mentioned before, Greg, that principles are a really big part of ACN. They're a big part of why you're still here today. And I know that you personally are a really big believer in principles. I'd really want to talk through this process because it's really quite fascinating. I know you had an amazing speaker. Andy Andrews came as well to the Elevate conference, who is also, all very much principles based in his presentations. Do you want to talk a little bit about, why principles are important, why they're important to you, and what exactly do you mean by principles? Big question.
It's an interesting question. Yeah, it really is an interesting question. It's so vast. You know, I just believe that you need to establish a solid foundation for anything that you do. Without a solid foundation, it's gonna come crumbling down. If you don't have other people's interests at heart more so than your own, I believe you're destined to fail. I really do. So we put in foundational Christian principles into our company. Just simple things like treat people that you want the way that you want to be treated. You know, how simple is that? And yet it's contrary to the way society works today.
Yeah.
You know, everybody is about me, I. What can I get at everybody else's expense? And they'll win for a short term. They'll get away with it for a week or a month or maybe even a year. But it'll catch up to them. And it's just not worth it to us. Not just financially. I'm just talking about personally. You know, I want to lay my head down on a pillow and know that we treated people well. Maybe they didn't. Maybe some people didn't make it. And I can tell you a lot of them don't make it because they don't want to work. But I can't help that, right? I only can provide hope and opportunity in an environment to win. And so these principles are very, very, they're serious to us. You know, one of those principles is never compromise who you are. Never compromise what you stand for. Those are very, very serious things because it's so easy to chase. It's so easy to be enticed. And if you do that, it just turns out to be a disaster. I learned a long time ago the greatest distance between where you want to go from where you're at is a shortcut, right? It's the shortcuts don't turn out to be what you want to have happen for yourself and for your company. It just doesn't. So I would just encourage anybody that's listening to this to always think long term. Don't think about today. Don't think about, do you have to be concerned about today? Yes. Do you got to be concerned about tomorrow? Yes. But just like when you ride a bike, you know, if you look at your wheel, right, you're gonna hit something, right? But if you look down the road, you're going to stay on the straight and narrow, and you're not going to be distracted so much about the things that are in your peripheral vision. And so I would just encourage everyone to have that long-term mindset, to think about the next 5 years, 10 years, where you want to go, and you will navigate all your efforts towards that direction.
Yeah. You know, as you say that, I know one of the big challenges over the last few years I really believe I've seen people drawing their vision, their sight inwards, you know, to what's going on right in front of them right now. I don't see as many people, and I don't know about you, this is a personal observation. I'd be keen to know what you're observing going on, but that long-term thinking seems to have really shortened over the last few years. And, you know, for those that are worried about what's right in front of them right now, you know, even just the finances this week and the making the decisions this week to get through this week, what advice would you offer to those people right now to change that thought process and that thinking to move back to a long-term plan? Yeah.
You know what I found? Let me backtrack a little bit. I grew up in the inner city of Detroit, look, it was during the 60s. You know, I'm 63 years old. I was born in the 60s. So in the 60s and the 70s, in the inner city of Detroit was not very pleasant. And I could tell you horror stories about, you know, what I've seen, what I experienced. And I can tell you that, and this holds true today, that most people that live in dysfunction, they no longer notice that it's dysfunctional. It's just the way that it is. And until you have a higher perspective to see really what's going on, that's what I'm talking about, long-term vision, you'll never recognize the dysfunction. And so today, you talk about the economy, you talk about where people are at today. I honestly don't know what people are going to do that are just relying on employment. You know, I really don't. I mean, look, I'm quite odd in this regard. I love to go grocery shopping.
No, I'm with you. I enjoy
I,
grocery shopping. So
I do most of the grocery shopping in the house. I just love to go. And I'm blown away by the grocery bill. I'm blown away, right? You get a little sack of something, it's $60, it's $70 today. And every time I go, I think to myself, I don't know how people are doing it, right? When I'm in the grocery store, for example, and I see elderly people with their grocery cart, I just remember my mom, again, growing up in the inner city, I remember her putting stuff back. I just remember the look in her eyes, just thinking, how in the world am I going to pay this? Where am I going to eat that? I remember her taking stuff out of the basket. And so I'm looking around and I'm seeing these elderly people buying these groceries. And a lot of times I just pick up their tab. I just can't stand it because I just see the angst. But for the average person out there that's just relying on a W-2, I mean, listen, there's a lot of good jobs out there, and I'm not slamming jobs at all. But what I am saying is, here's what I'm saying, is if there was a way, and this is where ACN comes in. So I'm selfishly telling my opportunity story, but I'm just telling you the truth, okay? I mean, you can go somewhere else and look somewhere else. There's tremendous opportunities elsewhere. So I'm not just plugging ACN, but ACN's a good one. If you can start a plan B on the side where you actually can build a company within a company, where you can actually own your own business and create a residual income coming into your household every single month, where in case something happens to what you're doing on a full-time basis, that you have something going on alongside of it and you're not going to be devastated, because most people, Sam, they don't have 3 months of savings. They don't have it. If something happened to their job within the first 30 days, they don't know where their next dollar is going to come from.
yeah.
So that's what I would do. I would create an insurance policy for my family, if you will. I would start something on a part-time basis without question. It may be ACN, it may be not, it may be something else that you're thinking about. But my encouragement to you is, whatever it is, just do something while you have something else going on, so your family's not devastated down the road, because it's coming. I think there's worse days ahead for what's going on globally than better days ahead.
Yeah.
And we see signs of it all around. So I would just encourage you to put something in place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really powerful message. And I think it's the underlying fear that a lot of people have right now. And there's, you see there's three things that people do. They either, make silly decisions, which, and we've all done it, where you look back and you go, wow, I really wish I hadn't done that because that wasn't forward thinking. They stand completely still, or they make good decisions to move forward. And this is the thing, whatever that needs to be at the moment, we are in a really different time. And, fear can do a lot to the way that people respond.
Yes. Yes. I got, a lot of friends that I golf with, and, and some of them, are quite wealthy, and they don't know. Think about this. There's a class of people that are looking to make money, right? And they don't know what to do there. But the people that have made money, they don't know what to do with it today, right? Because everything's in disarray. I mean, everything, the global markets, you pick up a publication today, you see something online. It's so rare to see a positive story today. It's so rare. We're swimming upstream. We're fighting battles. We're bombarded with so much information. People are confused, and you know what confused people do? Nothing.
Yeah. And
they wind up getting crushed. And I would just encourage everyone that's listening to this, don't just stand there and get crushed, right? Get something going, but move forward. Either you're growing or you're dying. I want you to move forward. I want you to see some light at the end of the tunnel, and you can create it if you have the right mindset and the right desire to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. That does bring up great segue into my next question. I know you didn't know what that was, but well done. I want to know you've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of independent business owners with ACN. Many business people, so you've seen lots of patterns. You've seen successes, you've seen failures. What, in your observation, sets apart someone who is successful in business versus somebody who fails or isn't successful?
There's so many qualities, Sam.
I'm all for the big questions today, Greg. So
yeah, I get it. I get it. I'll tell you about two, because I think these two are very, very important. Yep. Here's the first thing, is you have to make a decision that whatever you do, whatever you decide to do, whatever that may be, that maybe for the first time in their lives, they're going to see it through and they're not going to quit. Because what I've seen is people get all excited to start, but how many of you know it's not how you start, it's how you finish? Yeah. Right? You can start a race, but nobody talks about all the people that are lined up for the race. They don't talk about everybody. Who do they talk about? The winner, right? They talk about the person that finished. They talk about the person that paid the price, the person that sacrificed long enough and went ahead of the pack. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage you to whatever you decide to do, whatever you plan B that you decide to implement for yourself and for your family, that you see it through and you don't quit. Because here's the reality of what's going to happen to you. There's going to come a time, without question, where you're going to wonder whether or not you have what it takes to win. Yep. You're going to question yourself, because making it in business or life or anything to go to rise above the masses is not easy. And you're going to question whether or not you have what it takes. And I'm going to tell you, most people take the path of least resistance, just like running water. Yep. They navigate towards what's easiest. And when it gets hard, they quit. And that's the pattern that they set up for their lives. That's why marriages are in such disarray today, because very few people are committed to anything. When the going gets tough, they just go. If you're talking about relationships and marriage, right? When you have a fight with your spouse, for example, right? Most people aren't going to put up with it. They just say, you know what? She's not, talking about the guy, she's not the person that I thought she was, and they just leave. Well, listen, I told you earlier, I've been married to Sherry almost 42 years. Every day has not been a good day. Every season's not been a good. I promise you, there were some times where she looked at me and said, why did I marry this guy? I mean, look, relationships or being in business is not easy. There's going to come a time where you're going to question. And if you're not committed, you're going to run and you're going to quit. So I would encourage you, first of all, finish whatever you start. Do something great for yourselves and for your family. And here's the second thing that I thought about is consistency of effort. Because honestly, Sam, I see people, they join ACN. They get excited. They think about the possibilities for themselves and for their families. And they do it for 2 weeks. And then life gets in the way. And then they start up again and something else happens. And they never get their business off the ground. Yep. And they wonder why it's not working. It's just because there's no consistency of effort. You have to do something on a consistent basis. The airplane on the runway can't take off if the pilot's got the pedal to the metal going forward and halfway down he pulls back. It's never going to get off. In fact, it's going to crash and burn at the end of the runway. Yep. You have to put it down. You have to sacrifice long enough. You have to pay the necessary price long after you think that you need to. Yeah. And if you do that, if you make a commitment to continually push forward every single day and to think 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, that's the direction you're going to head. You won't get tired. You're going to be more passionate and excited. You'll be energized to go after what you set out to do. Yeah. Wow. That's So don't quit and be consistent with your effort. I think those are two great things.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think, even to that second point, I think that goes with absolutely everything that they do and everything that anyone does in business. And, you would have heard us speaking into this a lot when we did our social media training with you guys. And it's that consistency of effort. We get a lot of people will come to us and say, my social media is not working. Why am I not reaching people? Why are people not interacting? Why do I feel like I'm wasting my time? And my first question is always going to be, what is your strategy? And are you doing this consistently? And 99% of the time, they did 7 days or 14 days, or they did a short period of time. They wanted to see the results. And the answer is you can't it's kind of like going to a gym and saying, I'm going to get fit. I'm going to lose 20 kilos. And I'm going to go to the gym for 7 days, and then I'm going to wait and see what happens. And at the end of that 7 days, I'll see if it's worth me coming back again later on down the track. And of course, you're not going to see anything change because it's about being consistent. It's very much like that with every area of business.
No, you're just going to get sore, and you're not going to feel like going the next day. You're not going back.
It's going to be really uncomfortable 7 days, right? So I'm actually really fascinated, Greg. You've talked a lot about having that plan ahead and really sitting down and thinking ahead 5, 10, 20 years down the track. And like you guys did where you had that piece of paper, that legal pad, and you wrote down what your plan was. If someone was sitting down right now and they're thinking, I want to start this business, whatever it looks like, whatever type of business they're thinking of getting into, or I want to start this little plan and I've got a piece of paper in front of me. Where would you, what advice would you give to somebody as a place to start with writing out, that plan? And I know that there's so many different business plans you can write out. There's so much advice out there, but from someone who's been through this, who's seen people do this again and again and again, where would you recommend people start?
Are you talking about in an industry or with a thought process?
I'm thinking if someone wants to start, let's say, an ACN business or a direct selling business of any kind. Most of our listeners are people in the direct selling industry, and a lot of them are people who have either just started or they've been in the industry for a long time. And in many cases, they're feeling stuck right now. And they're thinking, right, if I were to restart this, if I were to sit down and get out a piece of paper right now and relook at my business plan, where do I start?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I would look for some type of opportunity where that the company is solid. Because the last thing in the world you want to have happen is what had happened to us, 31 years ago. Yeah. That was a trying time. It was very difficult time, not knowing where you were going to land or what's going to happen to you, to yourself, or for your family. It's man, that was just thinking about it. It gives me goosebumps. Just thinking about the mindset that we were in. Just hoping and praying that something was going to work. It was that hard of a scenario, if you will. I remember it back then. And so make sure that whatever you're looking at, the company's solid. Secondly, make sure that whatever service or product that you have, that you're actually filling a need, not having to create the need. Because, if you think about long-term again, and this is the reason why ACN chose to be in the service business. This is why we didn't want any deliverables. We didn't want to have to create a market for what we're trying to sell. People are already spending the money on the services that we market. We're just giving them better value for the services that they already have. So like in ACN, in our scenario, if we could save people money on their healthcare, for example, healthcare is a big time concern for people. No matter what age you're at, if you're self-employed, then healthcare is a big deal. I mean, even if you're employed, and again, the risk is when you're employed, sometimes you may be self-employed down the road, depending upon what happens to your company. You need some type of healthcare. So we have something that is reducing people's premiums across the board. In the majority of cases, we can save people money on their health care and give them a better value and better service than they already had. And so who would say no to that? And every time we do that, we put that consumer in a better position. The IBO makes a residual income every time that customer pays a bill for that health share service. The IBO makes money.
Yep.
So who's going to say no to that? So find a stable company, find a company that has services or products that fill a real need, where the consumer does not have to take any discretionary income to do it, because long term, right, you got to plan ahead. There's going to be some seasons where those consumers don't have discretionary income. One of those seasons is right now. People are really wondering about, how they're going to make it at the end of the month. And so if we can actually save people money on things that they need, want, and use every single day, we're filling that void. We're filling that gap. And that's the reason why this season that we're in right now for ACN is so spectacular.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. And look, Greg, on the lighter side, I've been dying to ask you this question because I've heard you share just a little tiny portion of this, and I understand that there is much more to this story. But I love a good prank. And I understand that you and your partners from time to time like to get up to a little bit of mischief. And, and when I first heard about this, I thought this is why these guys are still together, because they know how to have some fun as much as everything else. Yeah. Would you be willing to share any of those stories with us today?
Oh, Lord. Mike and Tony are notorious for pranks. They're a comedy routine in and of itself.
Now, Mike and Tony are twin brothers, right?
They are twin brothers.
Right. And they look very alike from what I can tell.
Oh, it's very difficult to tell them apart, for sure. But when we first met, when I said we got together, we had all of our notes and the videotapes and the cassette tapes. We happened to be in Tony Kupas's apartment back then, because that's where we were in life, right? He had an apartment. And so we're sitting at the table. And all of us are there, and we're hashing out, what ACN is going to be like. And you got the legal pad of paper. We got, what are we going to call ACN? What's the name going to be of this company? What is our logo going to be? You can imagine, all those initial thoughts were right there. And while we're in the midst of it, Tony Kupas looks out of his cheap blinds, looking out, he separates the blinds and he's looking out the window like this. And he says, guys, we are surrounded by cops right now, and they got guns pointing at the apartment. Everybody get down now. And man, you didn't have to tell me twice. I slid. I'm from the inner city of Detroit, man. I slid on that floor, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, who in the world did I get in business with? Right? I got a wife, I got 3 kids. These guys don't have any kids. Robert was married. Mike and Tony weren't married. I mean, I'm going to go to jail. Are these guys drug dealers? What's my life going to be like? I'm such a loser. I don't even know these guys. I didn't know them. And so I'm on the floor, and Tony then says, just kidding. And I just wanted to kill the guy. But that was our first love-hate relationship was then. And I'll tell you another quick story. Robert and Tony, they were traveling late at night, coming back from a meeting that they were having, and they were going to another city, actually. So Robert was driving. Tony was asleep in the front seat. And as Robert was driving, a deer was crossing the road. And so Robert thought to himself, okay. He says, so he slowed the car down almost, and the deer just stood there, right? You know what a deer does, just stands there, right? Mm-hmm. So the car's just pulling up, the deer is there. he wakes up Tony, says, and he said, Tony, we're gonna hit a deer. And Tony looked, and he just got so startled. He started to scream. You wouldn't believe it. And it was the craziest thing. When Robert told this story, we were dying because I can just imagine can you imagine the shock of waking up from a dead sleep? Tony Kupas is waking up. There's a deer in the front window, in the front windshield, and he looks like he's about to get smacked. And Robert was just sitting there. It was so funny. And there's 100 of the stories over 30 years you can imagine. Yeah. It was it's just pretty incredible.
Oh, I love it. I love that you guys can have so much fun. And, you said at the start that you are such good friends. And I think that's, I really admire the fact that you guys honestly have stayed together longer than vast majority of the marriages out there. And you have grown an amazingly successful business. So congratulations. And you still like each other most of the time.
Yes.
That's very impressive. Yeah. Greg, what's next for ACN? You said that you've got, exciting plans. You're excited to see what happens next. What's a little bit of that look like?
Our company is counter-cyclical to the economy. Mm-hmm. So when things aren't going well, as they're not right now, our company tends to do tremendous. And it's just because people are more apt to looking at that plan B that we already spoke of. And so I remember distinctly, in fact, I told this story on a video that I just created. Some of our greatest years were from 2009 to 2020, just when COVID hit. And the reason for that is people were coming out of, that economic crisis of 2008 that we all experienced globally. And it shook everybody to the core, because when you see Lehman Brothers collapsing, you're thinking, how in the world is my company going to stay in business? Yeah. So from 2009, people were looking at, I got to secure my financial future. And so ACN, we had a tremendous window of a great run from 2009 to 2020. And I equate 2023 just like 2009. I see the same things occurring. I see hearing the same conversations happening. And so I believe that the next 5, 10, 15 years for ACN are going to far surpass anything that we've already done. I really do. And we're attracting some key people right now, people that are affiliated in other industries. For example, we're getting a good influx of real estate people today because of all the services that we have. because real estate, there's peaks and valleys, or highs and lows, and mortgage business, peaks and valleys, highs and lows. People those two groups want to stabilize their income and actually grow their income on a residual basis because they don't have residual income. They make a sale, they make a commission. Here's a way to get a residual income coming in to level out those highs and lows in their industries. And so today with Impact Health Share, the health share program that I talked about earlier, and the savings that we're able to provide people in the majority of cases that qualify for the program, it's amazing what's being generated today. We're saving companies tremendous amounts of money on their healthcare costs and providing a great opportunity for the IBOs that are bringing the service to those companies, let alone, the individuals that are saving money with us and what that's doing in regards to creating residual income for the IBO. Yeah. And so there's just tremendous upside right now. And in regards to timing with our company that we're very excited about. And, even after 30 years, Sam, we're, as I said, I'm 63 years old. I'm more energized today than I ever have been because I see so clearly what is about to happen, not only for ACN. ACN is going to do well, but I'm thinking more for people that join our company. What's going to happen for them if they follow the track that we've laid? Yeah. What's going to happen for them over the next 5 years? What is their life going to be like? How can we continue to positively impact their lives? It's going to be tremendous, and that's why we're excited about the people that are being attracted to our opportunity today.
Yeah, awesome. And Greg, look, just to wrap up, I've got our 4 favorite questions. These are my favorite questions. I love to ask these, so I'm really keen to hear what you've got to say here. Look, we also believe in knowledge being power, and our accelerator members love reading. We've been building a reading list for them, a book list, for over 2 years now through recommendations of our podcast guests, and I'm really keen to get your favorite book to add to our accelerator book list.
This is an interesting question, Miss Sam. And are you sure that you want me to tell you what my favorite book is?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. Can I just go backwards a little bit to give you some background?
Absolutely.
Because this will be really
It sounds
important.
like we need it. I'm very curious now. Go for it.
Yeah, you need it. I am a product of personal development. Mm-hmm. I went to college for 1.5 years. That's it. I ran out of money, so I had to leave. And without personal growth, I remember distinctly. I was 22 years old when I first even heard about the concept of personal development. Never read any books. Never listened to. I didn't even know it existed back then. Mm-hmm. Today, there's a plethora of information, right? You can have personal development 24/7. YouTube is full of it. I listen to a bunch of pastors and podcasts. I soak it. I listen. I listen every day. I take notes every day. I file my notes every day. I try to implement something that I learn every single day. Been doing this now for 40-some years, every day, without question. This is the book, and I'm going to tell you. I found that there is one book that all of these foundational leadership principles have come from. Mm-hmm. And that's the book of Proverbs in the Bible.
I knew you were going to say that. I don't know how I knew that. I knew you were going to say that. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at, you can buy a book on finances. Yeah. It's in Proverbs. You can find a book on healthy marriages. It's in Proverbs. You can find a book about business and business principles found in Proverbs. One of the Proverbs says, "Is a multitude of counselors, your plans are established." Who would not want to have that advice when they're starting a business? Mm-hmm. I want to have Andy Andrews. We had him speak at the event. He speaks a lot about. He has a board of directors for his life, and these are people that don't know that they're his board of directors. Yeah. He just navigates. Like if he wants to sit with somebody that can teach him about marriage and relationships, then he seeks those people out and develops a relationship. If he wants to know more about finances, he has somebody that's a friend that is more financially stable than he is, but he gleans information. Yeah. And so the book of Proverbs, listen, there's 31 Proverbs. And if you just read one a day, I'm telling you, take it from me. Even if you don't want to read the Bible because of your concepts of the Bible, just go to the book of Proverbs and read one a day and do it every single month without question. If you read Proverbs 5 this month and you read it last month, I promise you this month you're going to find out more about what that said than you did last month. And I continue to do it. And it's changed my life. It's changed the lives of thousands of people at ACN, changed my entire family with that type of thinking. Yeah. It's been an amazing thing. So that's the book. Yeah. And I would recommend people just get that in them, and then all the rest is gravy.
Yeah, I love that. Really, really powerful. And there's a lot in that. And it's really funny. That's actually the third time. It's the first time it's been recommended on the podcast. It's the third time I've heard that in the last month. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So there you go. It's
yeah, I've been telling our leaders that for years.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. There's a lot in that. And I would say as well, there might be some listeners right now going, well, I'm not Christian. I'm not going to sit there and read the Bible, guys. Don't let that get in the way of, learning and taking on potential wisdom. And, Proverbs is a book of wisdom, right? And like you said, there's financial advice, there's marriage advice, just check it out. It is, in all seriousness, there is so much wisdom in the book of Proverbs. Yeah. So I highly agree with you there. Yep. And
it's interesting because we talked about principles before.
Yes, and I know that was all tied in there.
These are principles. Listen, you don't have to understand a principle, and you know what I mean. If you don't understand it, it still works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Same thing here. These are principles that just work whether you know them or not. You might as well find out about them because they work.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Greg, if you could have a superpower, any superpower, what would that be and why?
I would like to know what would be in the hearts of people before I spoke to them.
Ooh, that's a good one. I have not had this one come up before. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, just think about the power of that, right? Because we're in the business, we're in the people business.
Yeah.
Right. And we're looking to attract good quality people. So how efficient would it be if you could just sift through all the people that you really don't want to talk to anyway?
Yeah.
And just talk to the people that that you want. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah. I love that. Yep.
I would love that superpower.
And Greg, your favorite quote?
Oh, I'll give you one from myself. How's that?
I love that. Perfect.
I'll give you one for myself. And there's a story that goes behind it, but for the sake of time, I won't tell it. The favorite quote that I have is, "There's great value in having no options."
I like that. I feel like it needs the story though. I feel like there's a big story there, but I love that. That's a really powerful one. And so, Greg, last question, I promise. But if you could go back in time and say one thing to your past self, what would that be?
One thing to my past self. If somebody would have told me early on that people are not who they initially portray themselves to be, on the positive side and the negative side, that would have saved me a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
Because I just believed so much in people, and when they disappointed, it crushed me. But now I understand. I just understand that people are people and they're going to do what they're going to do. But it took me years to digest that and internalize that, and that has made a huge difference in my life.
Yeah, it's a really powerful piece of advice, and I 100% agree with you on that. And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners probably feel very much the same way too when you look back and you think, how crushing it can be to put your faith in people only to have them let you down because you had an expectation that maybe was an unfair expectation on them.
Interesting.
To be perfect. I don't know. Anyway, Greg, thank you. This has been amazing. I really appreciate you coming in today and sharing your story with all of us, and so much wisdom and knowledge as well. I really appreciate you being so generous with your time. So thank you for being here today. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
You are welcome. I just hope that if we can impact one person, all of this is worth it.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure. And thank you as well to our beautiful listeners for tuning in again this week. It is wonderful to have you here. And don't forget, if you love this episode and there was something that you found touched you, please send this episode to somebody else. Share it with somebody that you think it might also impact. And don't forget, of course, to hit subscribe if you want to stay up to date with our upcoming episodes. But thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you again on the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast next week. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.